lot of this topic for you started with your daughter and her condition. Can you talk about how that got going and what happened?
Yeah, back when she was 3.5 years old, my wife and I were getting dressed to go out on our anniversary dinner. Babysitter was on our way, and my daughter dropped to the ground and had her first grand mal seizure, which lasted about 3.5 minutes. I had no idea what was going on. Subsequently, she had 9 more over the period of the next 3 weeks. They got progressively worse. So I said, we've got to look at what's going on here. And the neurologist said, well, she looks like she has a progressive form of epilepsy. You have to resign yourself to the fact that probably by the age of 12 she'll die. She'll be institutionalized beforehand, and you just should accept that. And I said, that's not acceptable to me. She says, well, I know this problem. I've seen it all the time, denial by the parents. You're going to have to go home and think about it. And I said, how can you accept that? She goes, well, I'm an epileptologist. And I went, fine, you study epilepsy. That, now I am too. So what? I said, my daughter will outlive you, and she has. She's 18 now. Neurologist did not make it. Feel sad for her, but it was just, I said, what do I find? What's going on here? And then I noticed, we had always known that she had these cafe au lait markings on her skin, around her body and her forehead. So I did research and found out that some lab studies have been done on mice when they're exposed in utero to pesticides. They have a higher propensity to have this, and the skin and the brain fold at the same time during development. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. My wife used to drive through the growing area of California, the valleys, and where they pesticide spray all the time when she was getting her master's degree in Southern California. So I went, maybe this is the cause of it. Don't know, can't say for sure, but it made me curious. And I started looking at things of detoxifying and looking at the evidence of autism. Areas where pesticide spraying is done, they have much greater levels of autism. Central valleys of California, places like Brick Township in New Jersey where they have high toxicity levels. And okay, we're seeing this, and I was working with autistic kids for quite a long time before my daughter was born, and I noticed their detox pathways were messed up. They were very high phase 1, very low phase 2, and I thought, what if we upregulated phase 2, made that work better, the glycine, things like that, the amino acids. And sure enough, parents were telling me, wow, our kids are getting better. Their symptoms are less. They're not head banging as much, hand flapping. They're being more relaxed. They're more communicative. They're looking at us. And I thought, maybe onto something. And I then looked at the issue of obesity and toxicity and said, there were reports of people who are eating normal levels of food, and they're exercising and they're not losing weight. They're actually gaining. And then I found a study by Dr. Leo Tresond and a number of other ones, one from Laval University, that implicated toxins with weight gain, that it lowers resting metabolism. And I reported on it in 2002 in Las Vegas at a clinical nutritionist meeting. And I put the proposal that resting metabolism is affected by anywhere from 2 to 7%. And that could lead at 7%, about 131 calories a day unburned. And when you take it over a year, that's 47,000 calories or 13 pounds of weight gain for a person who exercises and eats well. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. Then reports came out of breastfed babies being obese. It's not because they're going to McDonald's. Something's going on here. They're being breastfed. The toxins were pretty high in the breast milk. And then a study's being done now that is a 21-year study on children where they look at the link between toxins and obesity. So when you look at a study of this nature of 100,000 children, somebody's got something that says this is part of the issue. And when I lectured in Bogota, Colombia, I had a professor of health come up to me and said, thank you for doing this speech because we've been puzzled at why we have people eating 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day becoming obese. And yes, we know they're eating too much sugar, but it doesn't make sense. Because if it's calories that cause this, then why are they, they shouldn't be gaining weight, they should be losing weight. And so for the first time they looked at it, because I looked out the window of my hotel in Bogota and I asked them, I said, is this fog here all the time? And they went, oh, that's not fog, it's smog. This is the way, because it's in a big basin and a bowl. And you start looking at places like Beijing and Shanghai, and they're starting to notice this too. So this is kind of a global obesity issue, and it's not just us exporting our bad food to them.
Right. So you're able to translate that into your daughter's, all this information into your daughter's condition and kind of turn the tide?
Yeah, so my daughter started, she started having drop seizures,
Yeah.
and they would be hundreds a day. And so we were just, what do we do here? And we started noticing that toxins cause an increased level of inflammation in the body. And then we ran a test called MRT. It's from Oxford Biomedical, and what it does, it looks at the inflammatory reaction to foods. And I was very skeptical about their test. I thought, sure, everybody comes up to me, yeah, we can help your daughter. And I'm like, yeah, right. We did the test 5 days later. Her seizure activity went down by 80%. And the school called us and said, you're supposed to tell us when you change medications. Your daughter's very different. And we thought, okay. We really were detoxifying her as much as we could, but something had already turned on for her. But when we reduced the inflammation, the effect was dramatic. And so we were able to, with her being constantly inflamed, you're trying to put out a fire that keeps on getting lit.
Right.
So we couldn't get anywhere. We were running up the down escalator. Then all of a sudden, we started getting the benefits, and we were able to detoxify her better. Now she has about 2 seizures a month, a lot less. This is usually because if she hasn't slept over the night, she still has a lot of anxiety and almost like guilt of why did I get this? But it really dramatically made a difference. And we're learning more and more about this. And it turns out that she has an issue with a certain detoxification pathway called 3A4 on the cytochrome P450. Fully 50% of all medications are metabolized through that pathway. So anytime she would take a drug that was there, she would either stop walking, where she could not walk, or she would get paranoid. In one case, she went into a 6-hour seizure. She had such a bad reaction. So we discovered this just about a year or two ago, and that this 3A4 is also throughout the nervous system. And there was a paper in 2012 from the Cleveland Clinic about it. So we're just learning these new steps on what we can do with people like her and how many others out there. When we hear stats like 1,200 people die a day of properly prescribed medications,
Yeah.
how many of them have that problem? And had we known that, we never would have given these people this drug. So it's a big issue. We're just learning, so much about it. But with my daughter, we made great headway. Now we just need to get the last little bits of behavior issues that were due to all these thousands of seizures that she had. But how many other kids could benefit from this? And I've seen it, kids who've gone from, having numerous blank out seizures to all of a sudden being fine because we found a toxin that they were exposed to greatly, and now they don't.